The morning alarms on Haven Prime sounded different that day. Commander Alex Reed noticed it immediately as he walked through the colony's main corridor. The usual gentle chimes that marked shift changes had been replaced by harsh, urgent beeps that echoed off the metal walls. Something was wrong. 3 months ago, Haven Prime had been a bustling hub of galactic trade and diplomacy. The mining colony sat at the edge of human space, where 17 different alien species worked alongside humans to extract rare minerals from the planet's core. The colony brought their advanced drilling technology. The thorax provided their incredible strength for heavy lifting. The Zephyrians contributed their ability to work in toxic atmospheres that would kill most other beings. Now the corridors felt empty. Alex had counted only 12 non-human workers during his morning inspection, compared to the usual 300. The colony quarters were completely vacant, their advanced equipment left behind in neat piles. The thorax had vanished overnight, leaving only their massive work suits hanging like empty shells in the equipment bay. Dr. Emma Stone met Alex at the command center, her face pale and worried. She had been monitoring communications all night, trying to reach their contacts across the galaxy. The results were the same everywhere. Dead silence. Nothing from Earth Command either, Emma said, pulling up the communication logs on her screen. The last message we received was 18 hours ago. Just routine status reports, then everything stopped. Alex studied the data. Every communication channel showed the same pattern. Normal traffic until approximately 0300 Galactic Standard Time, then complete silence across all frequencies. It was as if someone had turned off the entire galaxy's ability to communicate. What about the trade ships? Alex asked. The Meridian cargo vessel was supposed to arrive today. Emma shook her head. I've been tracking all scheduled arrivals. 7 ships were expected this week. None have appeared, but Alex, that's not the strangest part. She switched to the external sensors, showing the space around Haven Prime. 3 alien vessels hung in orbit, but they weren't following normal approach patterns. Instead, they seemed to be loading supplies and personnel as quickly as possible. They're evacuating, Alex realized. But why? The answer came an hour later when Delegate Wren, the Kalani representative, requested an emergency meeting. Alex had worked with Wren for 2 years and had never seen the tall, elegant alien look frightened before. Now Wren's normally calm blue skin showed patches of silver, a clear sign of extreme distress among the Kalani. Commander Reed, Wren said, his voice carrying the formal tone reserved for the most serious occasions. I must inform you that all Kalani personnel will be departing Haven Prime within the next 6 hours. Alex felt his stomach drop. Departing? But we have contracts. Projects that are months from completion. What's the emergency? Wren's large eyes flickered with something that looked like guilt. There are threats approaching from the galactic core, ancient enemies that have awakened. The Federation Council has ordered all non-essential personnel to withdraw to the inner systems immediately. Non-essential? Alex stood up sharply. Haven Prime is a major mining operation. We provide rare elements to half the Federation worlds. How are we non-essential? Not the colony, Commander. The humans. The words hung in the air like a physical blow. Alex stared at Wren, trying to process what he had just heard. What do you mean, the humans? Wren's skin shifted to a darker blue, showing his discomfort. The threat we face, it specifically targets certain types of consciousness. Human minds appear to be vulnerable. The Federation cannot risk exposure spreading to other species. All human worlds and colonies are being placed under quarantine protocols. Emma stepped forward. Quarantine? You mean abandoned? It is temporary, Wren insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. Once the threat passes, normal relations will resume. And if we're attacked while you're gone? Alex demanded. What are we supposed to do? Wren was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his words were barely above a whisper. Survive as best you can. I am sorry, my friend. Over the next 3 days, Alex watched as every alien presence vanished from Haven Prime. The evacuation was swift and efficient, but it felt like being slowly drained of life. The Thorax took their construction equipment. The Zephyrians disabled their atmospheric processors. Even the friendly Dotari, who had run the colony's main recreation center, packed their belongings and departed without explanation. By the end of the week, only humans remained on Haven Prime. 1,200 colonists suddenly found themselves completely alone in a galaxy that had been their home for 50 years. The panic started small. A few families demanded immediate transport back to Earth. Some workers refused to continue their shifts without alien supervision. But as the days passed and no word came from any source, something unexpected began to happen. The humans started adapting. Without the Kalani drilling equipment, the miners improvised new techniques using older human technology. Without thorax labor, the construction crews developed creative solutions using human engineering and determination. The agricultural teams, left without Zephyrian atmospheric assistance, found ways to grow food using methods their ancestors had perfected centuries ago. Alex found himself thinking about Earth's history. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters long before they knew other species existed. They had reached for the stars using nothing but human knowledge and human courage. "Commander?" Emma called from the communication station. "I'm picking up something on the long-range sensors." Alex hurried over to look at her readings. Far beyond the edge of the system, space itself seemed to be wrong. The stars were dimming in a pattern that moved like a vast shadow across the galaxy. "What is it?" Alex asked. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the sensors. "I don't know. But whatever scared our alien friends enough to abandon us, I think it's coming." Alex looked around the command center at his human crew. They were frightened, confused, and completely cut off from the civilization they had known. But they were still here. They were still working. They were still human. "Then we'd better get ready," he said simply. Outside the windows of Haven Prime, the stars continued to dim one by one, and humanity prepared to face the unknown alone. The coffee in Admiral Torres's cup had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. Her eyes remained fixed on the massive holographic display that dominated the command center of New Geneva Station. Across the three-dimensional map of human, space red dots marked the positions of what Earth's best scientists had started calling the Void Fleet. 3 months had passed since the Great Silence began. 3 months since every alien civilization had vanished, leaving humanity alone in the galaxy. Now they knew why. Dr. Emma Stone stood beside the Admiral, having been transferred from Haven Prime to serve as the military's chief xenobiologist. Her expertise with alien technology had become invaluable as they tried to understand their enemy. She pointed to a cluster of red indicators moving through what used to be Kalani space. "The pattern is always the same," Emma explained to the gathered officers. "They arrive at a star system, surround it completely, then something happens to the star itself. Within 72 hours, all energy output drops to zero. The star doesn't explode or collapse. It just dies." Lieutenant Ryan Foster, newly promoted after his impressive work defending the outer colonies, studied the tactical display. "How many ships are we talking about, Doctor?" Emma's expression was grim. "Our best estimates put the fleet at over 400,000 vessels. Each one appears to be roughly the size of our largest battleships, but their technology is unlike anything in the Federation databases." Admiral Torres finally looked away from the display. "And they're headed directly for human space." 37 days until they reach our outer colonies, confirmed Captain Beth Anders, the fleet's best tactical analyst. "Based on their current speed and direction, they'll hit Titan's Rest first, then Haven Prime, followed by the agricultural worlds in the Centauri system." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. The entire human fleet consisted of perhaps 200 ships, most of them converted civilian vessels with basic weapons. They were about to face an enemy that outnumbered them 2,000 to 1. "What do we know about their technology?" Torres asked. Emma activated a series of recordings captured by long-range sensors. The images showed sleek black ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. When they moved, space around them appeared to ripple and distort. They used some form of energy manipulation that we don't understand, Emma said. From what we can observe, they seem to drain power from everything around them. Stars, planets, even the background radiation of space itself becomes fuel for their ships. Foster leaned forward. What about our ships? Our weapons? That's where it gets interesting, Emma replied, switching to a new display. I've been analyzing the abandoned alien equipment on Haven Prime. Every piece of technology left behind has been completely drained of power, but our human equipment works perfectly fine. Torres raised an eyebrow. Explain. Near as I can tell, their power-draining ability targets specific quantum signatures. All known alien technology operates on advanced quantum computing principles. But human technology, well, we're still using a lot of older methods. Chemical reactions, mechanical systems, electromagnetic fields generated by more primitive means. Anders looked puzzled. Are you saying our older technology is somehow better? Emma shook her head. Not better. Just different. Think of it like this. If you have a device that can drain all the water from a swimming pool, it doesn't affect the water in a sealed bottle. Our technology might be in a different bottle, so to speak. Over the following weeks, as the Void Fleet continued its approach, something remarkable happened throughout human space. Instead of panic and chaos, people began to prepare. Word spread from colony to colony about humanity's potential technological advantage, and suddenly being primitive became a source of pride rather than shame. On Titan's Rest, the mining crews stopped using the advanced thorax equipment and returned to human-designed machinery. On the agricultural worlds, farmers abandoned alien crop enhancement systems and went back to methods their grandparents had used. Earth itself began converting its defense fleet to rely more heavily on projectile weapons and chemical explosives rather than energy-based systems. Dr. Stone worked around the clock to understand the enemy better. She discovered that the Void fleet ships seemed to communicate through direct energy transfer rather than traditional signals. When one ship learned something, the entire fleet knew it instantly. But this also meant they all shared the same weaknesses. They've never encountered technology like ours, Emma reported to Admiral Torres during one of their daily briefings. Every civilization they've faced has used quantum-based technology. They've developed specifically to counter that. But chemical rockets, gunpowder weapons, mechanical computers, these things might as well be invisible to them. Torres nodded slowly. Like bringing a sword to a gunfight, except in reverse. Exactly. They've brought the most advanced weapons in the galaxy to fight an enemy they don't understand. The first real test came when a single Void ship, apparently, scouting ahead of the main fleet, entered the edge of human space. It approached a small research station in the Proxima system, where 23 human scientists had been monitoring its approach for weeks. Dr. William Chen, the station commander, made a decision that would change everything. Instead of running or hiding, he ordered his team to power up every piece of human equipment they had. Radar systems, radio transmitters, even the station's old-fashioned nuclear reactor were brought to full power. The result was immediate and shocking. The Void ship, which had been approaching steadily, suddenly began to fluctuate. Its smooth, predatory movement became erratic. The ship's hull, which absorbed all light and energy, began to flicker and show structural damage. It's like watching a shark suddenly develop allergies, Chen reported to Earth Command. The thing just couldn't handle our electromagnetic signature. After 20 minutes of exposure, it retreated. The news spread through human space like wildfire. Humanity had found their advantage, and it wasn't advanced technology or superior numbers. It was their stubborn refusal to abandon what worked, even when the galaxy told them it was obsolete. As the main Void fleet approached the outer colonies, Admiral Torres made a fleet-wide announcement that was broadcast to every human settlement. People of Earth and all human worlds, her voice carried across space to over 2 billion humans. We stand alone, but we do not stand defenseless. The enemy comes with technology beyond our understanding, but they do not understand us either. We are human. We adapt. We survive. And sometimes being left behind is exactly what makes you strong enough to lead. On screens across human space, people watched as the Void Fleet finally reached Titan's Rest. 400,000 alien ships, dark as the space between stars, arranged themselves around a single human mining colony where 10,000 people had chosen to make their stand. The real war was about to begin. Captain Ryan Foster had never thought he would die defending a pile of rocks floating in space, but Titan's Rest had become more than just a mining colony. It had become a symbol. When the evacuation orders came from Earth Command, 10,000 colonists voted to stay. They would make their stand here, armed with mining equipment and pure human stubbornness. The asteroid mining station had been converted into a fortress over the past month. Massive industrial drills became weapons capable of punching holes through ship hulls. Ore processing facilities were turned into ammunition factories. The same magnetic launchers that had once shot containers of precious metals to cargo ships now hurled explosive charges at approaching enemies. Foster walked through the makeshift command center, checking the preparations. The walls were lined with equipment that would have been considered ancient by Federation standards. Chemical-powered rockets, electromagnetic pulse generators, and even some weapons that used actual gunpowder. Each piece of technology was deliberately chosen because it operated on principles the Void Fleet couldn't drain or understand. Status report, Foster called out to his team. Sarah Kim, the chief engineer who had volunteered to convert the mining equipment, looked up from her workstation. All primary systems are operational. The magnetic launchers have been loaded with our special packages. Those special packages were Foster's idea. Instead of trying to match the enemy's advanced technology, they had gone in the opposite direction. Each projectile was a simple metal container filled with chemical explosives and shrapnel. No sophisticated guidance systems, no energy-based detonation methods, just basic physics and chemistry that had worked for humans for centuries. Sensor readings? Foster asked. Lieutenant Mark Davis pointed to his display. They're here. 400,000 ships, just like the report said. They're arranging themselves in a sphere around the entire asteroid field. Foster looked out through the reinforced windows of the command center. Space around Titan's Rest was filled with darkness that moved. The void ships absorbed all light, making them visible only as areas where stars disappeared. It was like being surrounded by holes in reality itself. Remember what Dr. Stone told us, Foster announced to everyone in the command center. These things drain energy from advanced technology, but they've never seen anything like what we've built here. We're not fighting with quantum computers and plasma weapons, we're fighting with hammers and explosives. The first attack came without warning. Beams of pure darkness lanced out from the void ships, striking the outer asteroids of the mining field. Where the beams touched, rock and metal simply ceased to exist, leaving perfectly spherical holes behind. "Return fire!" Foster commanded. The magnetic launchers responded with a sound like thunder. Dozens of metal containers shot out from hidden positions throughout the asteroid field. The projectiles were moving at incredible speed, but they were essentially just chunks of metal and explosives flying through space. What happened next surprised everyone. The void ships tried to drain the energy from the approaching projectiles, but there was nothing to drain. The containers were unpowered, unguided, and operating purely on momentum and chemical reactions. When they struck the alien hulls, they exploded with simple, devastating effectiveness. "Direct hits on 7 targets," Davis reported with excitement. "Their hulls are breaching." Foster watched in amazement as several void ships began to retreat, their perfect dark surfaces now showing gaping holes where human explosives had torn through. It was working. Humanity's old-fashioned approach to warfare was actually working against an enemy that could defeat any advanced civilization. But the Void Fleet was vast, and they learned quickly. The second wave of attacks came from multiple directions, forcing the human defenders to split their attention. Foster realized they couldn't win through firepower alone. They needed to be smarter. "Sarah, can we overload the reactor?" he asked. Kim looked at him with concern. "You mean deliberately cause a meltdown? That would destroy the entire station." "Not a meltdown, an overload. Push our electromagnetic field generator beyond its limits. If these things are sensitive to our energy signatures, let's give them more than they can handle." The plan was desperate, but it was human in its simplicity. Instead of trying to hide their electromagnetic signature, they would amplify it. Every piece of electronic equipment on Titan's Rest was connected to the main power grid. Radios, computers, life support systems, even personal devices carried by the colonists. Everyone not essential to the defense, report to the main assembly hall, Foster announced over the station-wide communication system. Bring every electronic device you own. We're going to turn this entire asteroid into the galaxy's biggest electromagnetic pulse generator. As the battle raged outside, 10,000 humans gathered in the heart of Titan's Rest. They brought their personal computers, their communication devices, their medical equipment, and anything else that generated an electromagnetic field. The colonists formed a massive circle around the power generator, each person operating their devices at maximum output. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The void ships that had been closing in on the station suddenly began to behave erratically. Their smooth, coordinated movements became jerky and unpredictable. Some ships started firing on each other by mistake. Others simply stopped moving entirely. Dr. Emma Stone's voice came through the communication system from New Geneva Station, where she was monitoring the battle. Ryan, whatever you're doing, it's working. The enemy fleet is showing signs of severe system disruption. Their shared consciousness network appears to be overloading. Foster grinned as he watched void ships retreating in chaos. Turns out 10,000 humans thinking really hard makes a lot of electromagnetic noise. But the victory at Titan's Rest was just the beginning. Word spread quickly through human space about the successful defense. More importantly, it spread the knowledge of how to fight back. The key wasn't advanced technology or superior numbers. The key was being aggressively, uniquely human. On Haven Prime, Commander Alex Reed received detailed reports of the battle and immediately began implementing similar tactics. The colonists dismantled their remaining alien equipment and rebuilt their defenses using purely human technology. When the Void Fleet arrived at Haven Prime 3 days later, they found a world that fought back with mining charges, chemical, rockets, and a determination that had carried humanity across the galaxy. Each successful defense taught humans more about their enemy. Dr. Stone, analyzing data from multiple battles, made a crucial discovery. The Void Fleet's power-draining technology created a feedback loop when exposed to certain electromagnetic frequencies, the frequencies that human brains naturally produced when under stress. We're not just resistant to their weapons, Stone reported to Admiral Torres. We're actually toxic to them. Every time a human experiences fear, anger, or determination in battle, we generate the exact electromagnetic patterns that disrupt their technology. This revelation changed everything. Humanity's emotional nature, often seen as a weakness by other species, was now their greatest weapon. The more desperate the situation became, the more effective human defenders became against the Void Fleet. As news of successful defenses spread, something unexpected happened throughout human space. Instead of evacuating threatened colonies, more humans volunteered to defend them. The outer worlds, which had always been seen as frontier settlements, became fortresses manned by people who understood that sometimes the best technology is the one your enemy can't understand. Admiral Torres, watching reports come in from across human space, realized that the war had fundamentally changed. This was no longer about survival. This had become humanity's declaration to the galaxy that being abandoned had made them stronger. The Void Fleet, which had swept through advanced civilizations with ease, found themselves facing an enemy that got more dangerous the more desperate they became. For the first time in their expansion across the galaxy, they were learning what it meant to fight humans who had nothing left to lose. Commander Beth Anders had flown combat missions for 15 years, but she had never seen anything like New Harmony. The planet below housed 50 million humans who had refused evacuation orders. From her fighter's cockpit, she could see the lights of cities stretching across continents, each one representing thousands of people who had chosen to make their stand here. The Void Fleet hung in space like a dark storm cloud, over 600,000 ships arranged in perfect formation around the planet. They had learned from their defeats at the outer colonies and brought overwhelming force to crush humanity's largest population center outside Earth itself. Admiral Torres's voice crackled through the communication system from her flagship. All units, this is command. Remember what we've learned. Stay close to our capital ships where the electromagnetic interference is strongest. Use chemical propulsion for final attack runs. And trust in what makes us human. Anders checked her. Fighters' weapon systems one more time. No energy weapons, no guided missiles, no advanced targeting computers. Just old-fashioned projectile guns loaded with explosive rounds and a rocket engine that burned chemical fuel. Her targeting system was a simple optical scope that her grandfather might have recognized. Blue Squadron, form up on me, Anders commanded her pilots. We're going to show these things what happens when you threaten human families. The battle began with the largest space engagement in human history. 200 human ships, everything, from military cruisers to armed civilian transports, moved to engage an enemy fleet 3,000 times their size. It should have been a massacre that ended in minutes. Instead, it became something unprecedented in galactic history. The moment human ships opened fire, the Void Fleet's perfect coordination began to break down. The electromagnetic signatures, generated by human crew members under combat stress, created interference patterns that disrupted the aliens' shared consciousness network. Void ships began making targeting errors, firing on empty space or even hitting their own allies. But the real breakthrough came when Lieutenant Tom Wilson, flying a converted cargo hauler, made a desperate attack run against a Void mothership. His ship was damaged, his weapons were nearly empty, and his fear was overwhelming. That fear, that pure human terror mixed with determination, generated an electromagnetic pulse that crippled not just his target, but every Void ship within 1,000 kilometers. Dr. Emma Stone, monitoring the battle from her laboratory on New Harmony's surface, saw the readings and immediately understood what was happening. Admiral Torres, I need to speak to every human in the system right now. Torres, in the middle of coordinating the fleet battle, didn't have time for scientific discussions. Doctor, we're a little busy here. This is the key to winning. Stone insisted. The electromagnetic pulse that just disabled part of their fleet, it wasn't generated by our equipment. It was generated by Lieutenant Wilson's brain when he was terrified but still fighting. The communication channels fell silent as the implications sank in. Every human in combat was generating these pulses naturally. The more scared they were, the more determined they became, the more effective their natural electromagnetic field became against the enemy. Stone's voice reached every human ship and every person on New Harmony's surface. Listen to me carefully. Don't try to suppress your fear. Don't try to be calm. Let yourself feel everything, the terror, the anger, the desperate need to protect your families. That emotion is our weapon. What followed was unlike any battle in recorded history. 50 million humans on the planet's surface focused their minds on the enemy above. They thought about their children, their homes, their right to exist in a galaxy that had abandoned them. The combined electromagnetic output of an entire world's population began to pulse outward like a beacon. In space, the human fleet suddenly found themselves fighting an enemy that could barely function. Void. Ships that had moved with perfect precision now drifted helplessly as their systems overloaded. The dark hulls that had absorbed all energy now flickered and sparked with disrupted power flows. Anders led her squadron through the chaos, her fear transformed into a weapon more powerful than any missile. All units, press the attack. They can't handle what we're giving them. Fighter after fighter dove into the confused Void formation, their pilots no longer trying to suppress their emotions, but embracing them. Every human in the battle became a living EMP generator, their consciousness itself poisonous to an enemy that relied on shared technological awareness. On New Harmony's surface, something even more remarkable was happening. The 50 million colonists had gathered in cities, towns, and settlements across the planet. They weren't soldiers, but they were human. Parents thought about protecting their children. Workers thought about defending their homes. Children thought about staying brave like their parents. The planet itself became a weapon. Every human mind focused on the same goal created an electromagnetic field so powerful it could be detected from the edge of the solar system. The Void Fleet, which had conquered thousands of worlds, found themselves facing something they had never encountered. an entire planet full of beings whose very consciousness was antithetical to their existence. Doctor, Stone watched the readings in amazement. The entire Void Fleet is destabilizing. Their shared network is collapsing under the interference we're generating just by being human, and afraid, and angry, and determined all at the same time. Captain Foster, who had survived the defense of Titan's Rest and was now commanding a cruiser in the main battle, saw void ships beginning to retreat for the first time since the war began. They're pulling back. The entire enemy fleet is withdrawing. But Admiral Torres understood that this was bigger than just one battle. The Void Fleet wasn't just retreating from New Harmony. According to long-range sensors, they were retreating from human space entirely. After consuming civilizations across the galaxy, they had finally encountered a species that was toxic to their very existence. Anders watched from her fighter as hundreds of thousands of void ships began moving away from human space. They moved slowly, erratically, like wounded animals fleeing from a predator they couldn't understand. Their perfect dark hulls flickered with energy discharges, their coordination completely broken. All human vessels, this is Admiral Torres, came the announcement that would echo across the galaxy. The enemy is in full retreat. They're leaving our space entirely. Humanity has achieved what no other civilization could accomplish. We have defeated the Void Fleet. The celebration that followed could be heard across radio frequencies throughout human space. 50 million people on New Harmony cheered as the dark cloud of enemy ships disappeared into the depths of space. On every human world, from the largest cities on Earth to the smallest mining outposts, people understood that they had just witnessed something historic. But Dr. Stone, still analyzing the data from the battle, realized this was about more than just survival. The electromagnetic patterns that had defeated the Void Fleet were now spreading outward from human space, carrying information about humanity's victory. Any species with the right sensors would be able to detect it. After months of silence, the galaxy was about to learn that the species they had abandoned had not only survived, but had achieved the impossible. Humanity had stood alone against an enemy that no one else could face, and they had won. The real test would be what happened when their former allies started coming back. Ambassador David Wilson never expected to be the most important diplomat in galactic history. 6 months ago, he had been a minor trade representative dealing with shipping disputes between human colonies. Now he sat in the rebuilt council chambers, on Earth, facing delegates from 73 different alien civilizations who had come to ask humanity for forgiveness. The first message had arrived 3 weeks after the Battle of New Harmony. It was from the Kalani, the same species that had been among the first to abandon human space. The transmission was hesitant, almost fearful, asking if humanity would be willing to establish communication again. Within days, the messages multiplied. The Thorax sent formal apologies for their departure. The Zephyrians offered tribute in the form of rare minerals. Even species that humans had never directly worked with sent diplomatic inquiries, all asking the same basic question. Could they come back? Wilson looked across the table at Delegate Wren, the same Kalani representative who had informed Commander Reed about the evacuation months ago. The alien's blue skin showed the silver patches of distress that had become common among all the returning species. Ambassador Wilson, Wren said carefully, the Kalani Federation wishes to formally request the restoration of diplomatic relations with humanity. We understand that our departure was hasty. Wilson kept his expression neutral, though. Inside he felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. These were people, beings, he had considered friends. Their abandonment had hurt more than their fear. Define hasty, Delegate Wren, Wilson replied. Because from our perspective, it looked a lot like abandonment when we needed you most. The Thorax representative, a massive creature named Crew, shifted uncomfortably in his specially built chair. We had intelligence that the Void Fleet specifically targeted human consciousness. We believed that contact with your species would make us vulnerable to the same fate. And yet, Wilson said, pulling up a holographic display showing the battle, reports, human consciousness turned out to be the key to defeating them. While you were hiding in the inner systems, 50 million humans on New Harmony used their minds as weapons to drive off an enemy none of your advanced civilizations could face. Dr. Emma Stone, now serving as Earth's chief scientific advisor, entered the council chamber carrying a stack of data tablets. The past months had been the busiest of her life as she worked to understand and document humanity's unique resistance to void technology. "The analysis is complete," Stone announced to the assembled delegates. "We now understand why the Void Fleet was vulnerable to human consciousness. Your species all evolved similar patterns of electromagnetic brain activity due to your shared, quantum-based technology development. Humanity developed differently because we were isolated longer and took a different technological path." Delegate Wren leaned forward. "You mean our advanced development made us vulnerable?" "In a way, yes," Stone confirmed. "The Void Fleet's power-draining technology was specifically designed to counter the quantum consciousness patterns found in advanced civilizations. But human brains operate on different frequencies, especially under stress. To the Void Fleet, our minds weren't just resistant, they were actively harmful to their systems." A new voice joined the discussion as Admiral Torres entered the chamber. She had been promoted to head of Earth's Unified Defense Command, the military organization that had successfully coordinated humanity's defense against impossible odds. "The question isn't why we won," Torres said, taking her seat at the council table. "The question is what happens now. 73 species want to restore relations with humanity. But first I need to know why we should trust you not to abandon us again the next time things get difficult." The alien delegates exchanged glances. This was the heart of the matter, and everyone in the room knew it. Trust, once broken, was not easily repaired. It was Crew, the Thorax representative, who spoke first. "Admiral Torres, I will not insult your intelligence with excuses. We left because we were afraid. We had seen the Void Fleet consume civilizations that were far more advanced than humanity, and we believed you would fall within days. We were wrong about your capabilities, and we were wrong to abandon our allies. But more than that," added a new voice as Delegate Zess of the Zephyrian Union entered the chamber, "we were wrong about what strength means. We confused advanced technology with true power. Humanity showed us that sometimes the most primitive weapons combined with the right spirit can defeat any enemy." Wilson studied the faces or face equivalents of the assembled aliens. Some showed genuine remorse. Others seemed more interested in securing humanity's protection for the future. A few appeared to be struggling with the reality that the species they had considered junior partners were now the strongest military force in known space. "Here's what I propose," Wilson said after a long moment. "We rebuild the Galactic Federation, but we do it differently. No more hierarchical membership where some species are considered more advanced than others. Every member contributes what they do best, and every member supports the others when threats emerge." Stone nodded in agreement. "The Void Fleet taught us something important. Diversity isn't just politically correct, it's strategically essential. If every civilization in the galaxy had developed the same quantum consciousness patterns, we all would have been vulnerable to the same attack. Humanity's different evolutionary path is what saved everyone." Admiral Torres stood up and activated a large holographic display showing the current state of galactic space. The Federation database shows over 600 intelligent species across the galaxy. Most of them are probably still hiding in their home systems, afraid the Void Fleet might return. But they don't have to be afraid anymore, because now we know how to fight them. "You mean humanity knows how to fight them," corrected Delegate Wren. "No," Torres replied firmly. "We know how to fight them. All of us working together. Humanity discovered the key, but implementing it across the galaxy will require everyone's help." She gestured to the display, highlighting various star systems. "We've already begun training programs for other species. It turns out that while human consciousness is naturally effective against void technology, other species can learn to generate similar electromagnetic patterns through meditation and mental exercises. The Kalani have been particularly successful. Your natural telepathic abilities actually amplify the effect." Wilson watched as the mood in the room began to shift. The aliens were starting to understand that this wasn't about humanity demanding apologies or seeking revenge. It was about building something stronger than what had existed before. 5 years ago, when humanity first joined the Federation, we were eager to prove ourselves worthy of membership, Wilson continued. We wanted to show that we belonged among the advanced civilizations of the galaxy. But being abandoned taught us something valuable. We were already worthy. We didn't need anyone's permission to be strong. Dr. Stone pulled up another display, showing the construction progress on various projects throughout human space. In the past 6 months, we've established the Galactic Defense Network. It's a series of monitoring stations and rapid response fleets positioned throughout known space. Any species that joins commits to helping defend all other members against existential threats. And if the Void Fleet returns, asked Delegate Zess, then they'll face not just 50 million humans on one world, but trillions of conscious beings across hundreds of systems, all trained to use their minds as weapons, Torres answered. The galaxy learned a hard lesson about the value of diversity. We won't forget it again. Over the following weeks, the new Federation took shape. Earth became the capital not because humanity demanded it, but because other species recognized that. The planet that had stood alone possessed the leadership qualities needed for the galaxy's defense. The rebuilt council chambers included representatives from species that had never participated in galactic politics before. The Outer Rim civilizations, the isolated colonies, the species that had been considered too primitive for membership. In the old Federation, all were welcomed as equals. Commander Alex Reed, now promoted to Admiral and in charge of the Outer Territories, stood on the observation deck of Humanity Station, orbiting Earth. The station had become a symbol of the new Federation, with sections designed by dozens of different species working together. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from across the galaxy docking and departing, carrying diplomats, scientists, and trade goods between worlds that were no longer afraid. A Kalani child ran past in the station's main corridor, playing with a human girl and a young thorax. Their laughter echoed off the walls as they chased each other through the gardens that had been designed to accommodate plant life from 20 different worlds. It was a sound that Reed had never expected to hear again during those dark months of abandonment. Dr. Stone joined him at the observation window, carrying a data pad with the latest reports from the Defense Network monitoring stations. No signs of Void Fleet activity anywhere in the galaxy, she reported. It looks like they've retreated to whatever realm they came from. Hopefully they've learned their lesson about trying to consume civilizations that can fight back. Reed nodded, watching. A massive thorax cargo vessel docked next to a sleek Zephyrian diplomatic ship. What's the status on the consciousness training programs? Better than we hoped, Stone replied. We now have over 2 billion non-humans who can generate defensive electromagnetic patterns strong enough to disrupt void technology. The Kalani are helping us establish training centers on their worlds, and even some of the more isolated species are sending volunteers to learn the techniques. An announcement echoed through the station's communication system. Attention all residents and visitors. The memorial service for the heroes of the Great Silence will begin in 1 hour in the main assembly hall. All species welcome. Reed thought about all the humans who had died defending the outer colonies during those first desperate battles. They had died believing they were alone in the galaxy, abandoned by allies who they had trusted. Now their sacrifice had become the foundation for something stronger than the old Federation had ever been. Do you think it will last? Reed asked. This new cooperation between species? Stone smiled, watching the mixed groups of beings moving through the station's corridors. I think the galaxy learned something important about the cost of abandoning your allies. But more than that, I think we all learned that being different isn't a weakness, it's essential for survival. As the memorial service began, representatives from 73 species gathered to honor not just the humans who had died, but the principle they had died defending, that no one should have to face the darkness alone. The ceremony concluded with the reading of humanity's new motto, which had been adopted by the entire Federation. When the universe goes dark, we light the way. Together. Outside the station's windows, the stars shone brightly in a galaxy that was no longer divided between advanced and primitive, but united in the understanding that every voice mattered, every mind was valuable, and every species had something unique to contribute to the cosmic community. Humanity had been abandoned by the galaxy, but in standing strong alone they had taught everyone what it truly meant to stand together.